Hey everyone, welcome back to Never Talks. Once again, my name is Gretch, and today I am doing another informative video. I have a lot of information that I want to bring to you, and the motivation behind this video is because recently we received a lot of feedback on one of the posts that we put up a few weeks ago, and so I decided that it is important for me to get on here and systematically go through that post, because unfortunately several people felt the need to attack my credentials. And so rather than have a unproductive discussion about credentials, I thought that it would be better to get on here, make a video, and to address every single claim that I made in that post. And so that way, everyone out there who's watching can follow the resources for themselves and make their own determination. And so I've got all of my notes up here, and like I said, I have a lot of information to give you. And so I think what I'm gonna do later is I'm gonna put this video into 3 different segments, one segment for each claim that is made in this post. Okay, so with that being said, I want to make sure that everyone understands that I feel obviously really strongly about this information. I feel strongly that the research that I have done to support the claims that I am going to be making are valid and important. And so I just want to make sure that you guys understand that if you take the time to, if you put in the time to this, that I think it will be obvious that you will no longer feel the need to attack me personally. Rather, you will see that I am just a person. I'm a person in academia, I'm a researcher, and I love to bring people more information, because one of the biggest issues that Never Talks has, me and the gals that are working behind the scenes, one of our biggest issues is that we hear all the time that people were not told of the dangers and of the possible adverse events that could happen to them when they took botulism injections. We have a huge portion of people here that are suffering from Botox illness, and then also obviously a big portion of people who are here to learn. And so we just want to thank everyone for being here and giving us the opportunity and giving me the opportunity to speak to you, and that it doesn't matter what camp you're in, you're welcome here, and I am happy to have this discussion. Back to the biggest issue that we have with botulism use being that there is this huge gap in the providers providing necessary and important information to people. And so really what we're trying to do here, especially with this video, is we're trying to bridge that gap. We're trying to provide a vehicle for people to make a bridge between the lack of information they're getting from their providers and then the information needed to make a more informed decision for their health. So, to talk about the first post in question, if you scroll down to the 18th row of our Instagram feed, you will see a post that's like orange and white, and it says in bold letters to read the truth. Now that is made from a slide that I copied from a top US injector site. Now before anyone get upset or frustrated that I copied that slide and then physically altered it, I want to make sure that you understand that my using of that slide falls under fair use guidelines. And if you're not familiar with fair use guidelines, it's part of copyright law that protects people like me, researchers like me, who want to comment on and give a criticism or further information about things that we believe to be false, or I believe to be false. And so you can look this up on stanford.edu, there's multiple sites, but you can see in the first sentence even that I am completely allowed to do this. So it says, a fair use is any copying of copyrighted material done for a limited and transformative purpose, such as to comment upon, criticize, or even parody a copyrighted work. And I know we are just talking about a simple Instagram stories here, but I just want you to know that I know that that's still copyright. And so clearly the information I'm going to be giving you today falls under fair use. Let's just go ahead and talk about the first claim that is made in the slide that I altered. And the title of the slide, the original title was "The Misconception That Botox is Toxic." And then it goes on to say, Botox is the purified version of the true botulinum toxin, which means that it is largely non-toxic. Now, I have a lot to say about this claim. First, I want to say that all evidence points to this as being false, and here's why. The first thing we have to look at when we interpret this slide or this claim is that we have to understand what it is actually saying. The injector here is saying that Botox is largely non-toxic. And the first reason that she gives for saying that it's non-toxic is because it is a purified version of the true botulinum toxin. Now, before I can help you interpret this further, we have to take the time to look at their meaning of the word purified. And in this claim, she is using the word purified to mean clean or healthy or non-toxic. And so this is where I have a big issue with the statement. There is no such thing as purifying a neurotoxic protein. There is no such thing as purifying as in to make clean, healthy, or non-toxic a neurotoxic protein. Now, with that being said, of course, the botulinum A that is used in Botox has gone through a purifying process. It has to go through that process in order to isolate the protein, and I will talk more about that in a minute. There would be no other way to use botulinum toxin A protein if it didn't go through a purifying process. So, I want to make sure that I'm pointing out that the injector's error in this statement is her meaning of pure. The correct meaning of pure is actually, when talking about botulinum toxin A that Botox contains, it actually is perfect, unaltered, and exact. That is the correct meaning of purified here. So for anyone out there who is not aware of what botulinum toxin A is, it is the neurotoxic protein that is derived from the Clostridium bacteria. Botox and all 3 other manufacturer-approved drugs absolutely contain pure, as in unaltered, botulinum toxin, and it is an exact botulinum toxin. So obviously, this in no way makes Botox largely non-toxic. It actually makes it the complete opposite, a 100% pure toxin. Now moving on. She then goes on to say that Botox is the protein version of the true botulinum toxin. Now, this is just a loaded term to confuse and mislead you, and I believe to also manipulate people. The botulinum A that Botox contains is a protein. Of course it's a protein because that's what botulinum is. It is the A form of the protein, the most lethal. It is not another version of it. You either have botulinum toxin A or you don't. We have obviously tons of evidence to prove that in Botox that it contains botulinum A toxin based upon the way that it works. It either works by causing the muscles in the face to not contract, by inhibiting the release of acetylcholine, which is a neurotransmitter that the synapses release in order to tell the muscles to contract. It either does that and freezes the muscles or it doesn't. Botox absolutely does that. If it didn't do that, we would know that it doesn't work. It is extremely ridiculous to go around saying that Botox is another version of Clostridium's neurotoxic protein and that this somehow renders it completely non-toxic. It is literally so ludicrous that I have trouble wrapping my head around this statement. And so I think that that is why I dove so heavily into the particular research, because I could see right away that this claim was false and it was really a marketing maneuver and manipulation to get people to believe that Botox is not toxic. Now to discuss the proofs that I have regarding my criticisms of the first statement or the first claim the top injector made in her post. First of all, Botox absolutely contains botulinum toxin A. In 1928, you can look up the study by Dr. Herman Summer. He was the person who was responsible for first isolating the botulinum A protein and purifying it. Then in 1946, Dr. Edward Shantz took that purified protein and he actually was able to make it into the crystalline form. Then over the next 30 years or so, many groups and doctors were understanding botulinum's A effect on the muscles, until we got to the point where it was specifically first approved for use in patients who have blepharospasms or abnormal twitching of the eye. And that's when 3 different Botox drugs came out: the botulinum toxin A, that's dysport, the ANA botulinum toxin A, that's Botox, and then finally the botulinum toxin A, that's xeomin. So just to go ahead and read directly from the manufacturer's website, from Allergan's website, Botox is a sterile, and that means free from bacteria or other living microorganisms and totally clean. It is a sterile lyophilized, that's freeze-dried, form of botulinum toxin type A. It is a produced culture of the Hall strain of C. botulinum, and purified by a series of acid precipitations to a crystalline complex containing the toxin and other proteins. So you can easily see here, just in this statement here, and this is from the prescribing guide directly off Allergan's site, that Botox absolutely contains pure botulinum toxin A, and then it has a couple other ingredients too. It has sodium chloride and a human albumin component to it as well. So I will be sure to list all these sources obviously in the video. And so for the purpose of my video, I'm going to be suggesting that you visit one source, which is an abstract that is listed on PMC from the NIH. And that, in its footnotes, has 35 other peer-reviewed medical journals, other studies listed right along there. And so you can get a lot of information from one place. Okay, so I think that based on the information I just gave you, we can easily see that that particular claim is false. And now for segment 2, the second claim that was made on this particular slide. The protein is inserted directly into the muscles to help relax them and is not systemically absorbed into the bloodstream. Okay, I am going to show you why I believe this to be false. It has been shown in many studies and lost court cases against Allergan that botulinum toxin A can in fact move past the injection site and go into the bloodstream, where it is then dispersed throughout the entire body. This is absolutely an easy one for me to discuss because Allergan themselves puts out clear information on this proof. In September 2009, after 20 years of use, a black box warning for the toxin was issued by Allergan, and they are still using that today. It was issued indicating that botulinum could cause death and disability, and the black box warning also clearly states that the toxin can, and sometimes does, spread past the injection site, causing botulism. We have linked the medication guide several times on our Instagram site. It will be also at the end of this video, where you can pull up the black box warning for yourself and you can see this fact. The statement made by the injector in this post completely downplays this as a risk. She says that the protein helps to just relax the muscle, and that also downplays exactly what is happening when botulinum is injected. We believe strongly that each and every time botulinum is injected, that it actually causes irreversible damage. We have a proof of that here via an abstract and article of how botulinum toxin works. And basically, the reason why it is causing irreversible damage is because don't be fooled into thinking that once your face starts to move again, that the botulinum toxin A has somehow been completely removed from your body. Rather, what is actually happening is your body goes through a regenerative process where it regrows those synapses new so that they are once again capable of releasing acetylcholine. And so that is actually what happens when movement is restored to the face. Each and every time botulinum toxin A is used, it is irreversibly causing damage. Why is this happening? Why are we hearing misleading information? Why are trained injectors giving this misleading information? And I believe that it goes way, way back. And it goes back to the beginning of when the drug was marketed and when it was approved. And obviously there were a ton of cover-ups that happened to keep this information out of the hands of the people. Next, I want you to know and to see that these kind of tactics are not unique, obviously, to just the cosmetic injection industry. They happen in other industries worldwide. However, these marketing tactics of withholding real information and misleading clients goes way, way back in the history of Botox. There have been multiple criminal cases that have been brought against Allergan in which they pled guilty to and then had to pay millions of dollars in criminal fees. The most famous is the 2010 case brought against them by the U.S. Attorney General of Georgia, General's Office of Georgia, where they were ordered to pay $375 million for illegally marketing Botox to children with cerebral palsy and adults with severe headaches or pain disorders. And so I actually have a copy of the guilty plea agreement here. You can see that here. And so just to go ahead and read to you the charges that they were guilty for. A, Allergan provided value-added reimbursement support services to grow off-label use. B, Allergan lobbied healthcare payers to expand coverage for off-label use. C, Allergan directed hundreds of physician trainings, workshops, and dinners to advocate off-label Botox use, and this is still rampant today. D, Allergan paid doctors to attend advisory boards where they also wined and dined them. E, Allergan created and funded organizations to promote off-label use. And so you can find the guilty plea and also the criminal charges against them online. That's public information, but I'll link it here for you. And so I just want you to see that this particular manufacturer has a solid history of misleading their clients into thinking that off-label use is safe prior to it actually being approved for use in those ways. They have a history of giving misleading information, such as one of the most famous examples of this, of how they indoctrinated their clients, is that they released a marketing material called Myth versus Fact, and I have a copy of that here too, where you can actually see, the logo on it. It's clearly a marketing material, but it said as a myth, Botox treatment is dangerous because it comes from a poisonous toxin. And then they said fact, Botox is a prescription product that has been extensively studied and approved by the FDA for specific therapeutic uses. And then it goes on to say, myth, Botox causes botulism. Fact, Botox can occur only by ingesting the bacteria in contaminated food or by contact with an infected wound. Botulism cannot occur when Botox is injected properly by a trained physician. So this is marketing material prior to the issue of the black box warning that was released, where Allergan indoctrinated all of their clients with this false information, and that information, because it was so heavily given out to so many of their clients, moved throughout the history of Botox. And those same myths and facts are believed by many of their clients, doctors, nurse practitioners, and people that buy this product. They still believe that information to be true. They don't realize that criminal charges were brought against Allergan for releasing, information that was just simply false. And so I just want to make sure that people realize that, this is a huge, long, solid history of misleading information. Finally, for segment 3, I'm just going to dive right into that particular statement. In fact, you would need 200 to 300 times the number of units of the actual toxin to cause any problems. So first, this statement implies that Botox does not contain the actual botulinum toxin. They are implying that it is somehow different and that it is not the actual thing, which obviously, in the previous segments I already refuted. But this is an extremely frustrating statement to me because they are trying to mislead you into thinking that it doesn't contain the real botulinum toxin in the first place. And then to say that you would need 200 to 300 times the number of units to cause any problems is 100% irresponsible. And the reason why this is irresponsible is because no one actually knows the lethal dose of botulinum in humans, especially in units. So let's just talk about Botox dosing for a second. Botox dosing is actually based on a calculated median, calculated median of the LD50 for Swiss mice. Now, LD50 is just a toxicological term saying that it's the amount of toxin given all at once in units to the mice that cause death 50% of the time. Okay, so it is dosed in mouse units. So it is not known the amount of toxin it would take to cause human botulism for Botox. Now, I believe obviously that the amount of Botox that it would take to cause botulism would vary greatly from human to human. There are so many other factors that would come into play, and whether or not somebody experiences toxin spread past the injection site leading to botulism. And factors like these would be your age, your weight, your gender, any genetic predispositions that you might have, or medications that you are taking or have taken. There's just a number of different factors, autoimmune disorders or other disorders that you may already have. All of these things would definitely play a role in whether or not somebody's body, is able to process through that toxin or not. And so I just feel strongly that her saying that you would need 200 to 300 times the number of units to cause any problems is completely irresponsible, because we actually don't know, what it would take to cause problems in specific individuals. I have seen, based on calculating lethal doses in humans myself, people getting botulism at only 2% of their lethal dose. And so the question is it possible that even with a recommended dose that you can experience adverse reactions to Botox, or you can contract or get botulism? The answer is a clear yes. So Obviously, these facts are listed in the prescription guides for the product, and you are welcome to read it for yourself. But I'm just going to go ahead and read 5.2 since that's the most important part. Spread of toxin effect. This is directly from the manufacturer's site. The risk of symptoms is probably greatest in children treated for spasticity, but symptoms can also occur in adults treated for spasticity and other conditions, and particularly in those patients who have an underlying condition that would predispose them to these symptoms. In unapproved uses and approved indications, symptoms consistent with spread of toxin effect have been reported at doses comparable to or lower doses than used to treat cervical dystonia and spasticity. Now, that spread of toxin effect is primarily talking about therapeutic doses and usage of Botox, which we know those doses to be, much greater in units. However, at the very end there, we can see that it says spread of toxin is obviously been seen at doses lower than those used for cervical dystonia and spasticity. So doses lower, like what you would typically receive for a cosmetic dose. So I believe that this evidence points strongly to the fact that this particular statement, that it would need 200 to 300 times the amount given in this appointment to cause any problems. I believe that this information shows that it is just simply an irresponsible and really inaccurate statement. So the sources for this information are taken directly, obviously, from manufacturer supplied information. They are available at the same places I mentioned before, drugsatfda.com, directly from Allergan themselves, and then that particular article, which I haven't mentioned yet, but where you can understand how to calculate a human lethal dose, which is only based, it is literally only based on estimations, because we obviously can't test lethal doses on humans. It would be 100% unethical. But you can see the estimated human lethal dose based on other studies at the JAMA network, and I will definitely list that below. And I believe that's a free site that anyone can also get on. It's similar to PMC, Google Scholar, Medscape, those different places. So I hope that by me breaking down these three claims made by the injector shows you kind of my thought process behind why I believe them to be false. If anyone out there needs further information from me to understand in greater detail, I have more sources that point to this information, but I just kind of want to keep it easy. I also really do appreciate you taking the time to listen to me present this information. I know that there are also a lot of people out there that are helping to spread the word. I want to thank you for that. If you decide to use any of the information that I've presented here in this video, would you please be sure to cite us as one of your sources, and then be an excellent researcher and take the information that I've given you today and take it one step further and find some of your own sources that back up this information as well, because that is how we can just improve spreading the word and showing that these irresponsible claims are false. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you're having a great evening, and I'll be back with more information. You know I will be.